And some of you may know that next Tuesday is Mardi Gras, also called Fat Tuesday or Carnival or Shrove Tuesday. It's the day before Ash Wednesday and the beginning of the season of Lent. Now, Lent is not a season that is commonly observed by Quakers. Historically and today, many friends feel that there's the potential for the inbreaking spirit to make any moment of any day sacred, and that to lift up one day more than another might get in the way of this practice of deeply listening spirituality. And I know that sometimes I find it useful to set aside a time to especially pay attention. Unlike early friends, I don't live in that kind of close proximity with other folks from my spiritual community. And sometimes I feel that like a bird. We have a bird here. I'm distracted by the shiny bits that empire puts in front of me. Preoccupations of the world, preoccupations of status, and the priorities of empire, not the unconditional loving reign of God. So sometimes I see seasons like Lent, which is traditionally 40 days, beginning on Ash Wednesday and going until Easter. I see those times as an opportunity for preparation, for setting a little time apart, and maybe for experimentation. One of my favorite descriptions that I have read, and I wish I knew to whom I should attribute this description, but this description of Lent is a season of being invited, of being beckoned by God in a deeply personal way, where God invites us and says, "Come back to me with all of your heart." Come back to me with all of your heart. I didn't grow up going to church, and my early exposure to the concept of Lent was my Catholic school friends who were giving things up, like almost competitively giving things up, trying to outgive up each other. I'm giving up chocolate, I'm giving up sugar, I'm giving up hamburgers or television. And I thought of Lent as this period of austerity where you just ate fish sticks and couldn't have dessert. Instead, God invites, "Come back to me with all of your heart." And in this almost year, in fact, tomorrow is the day that school stopped. In this almost year of pandemic and isolation and the summer of uprising, we have given up a lot. Hugs, gatherings. Some people have lost work and security, loved ones. So don't come for our chocolate right now. In this year, I began to wonder, what if Lent was a time to take in more than you give up? More awareness, more compassion, more connectedness to the divine and to the people and to this aching world. So I want to propose an alternative approach to frame Lent as a practice of experimental listening for the work that is uniquely ours to do. One of Quakerism's founders, George Fox, is reported to have used the phrase, "This I know experimentally," when referring to the kind of capital T truth that God laid upon his heart. Early friends asked themselves, how is truth prospering among you? And is there life in it? Here, that capital T truth is kind of like a living organism, which requires attention, discipline, and care. Ours is an experimental faith, which implies a willingness to consider new insights that God lifts up for us, new ways of seeing and being. We're called to wholeness, where our beliefs and our actions are congruent. And this moving towards wholeness is a kind of living into each moment of the inbreaking spirit. Contemporary scholars tell us that when George Fox said experimentally, that he meant in his 17th century English experientially. And that might be true, probably is true, but I really like experimentally as an approach for living into the kingdom step by step, and also for Lent. So I want to invite you to join me on an experiment, to take on for 40 days or 4 days or 4 hours or a week some practice that resists empire and aligns you with God's kingdom. Maybe you will try composting. Maybe you will uninstall Facebook. Maybe it's an invitation for reconciliation with a friend or a family member. Maybe it's to try and show up for the seemingly impossible work and uncomfortable work of recognizing how white supremacy shows up in an organization you're part of and trying to undo it just a little bit. Maybe you want to commit to walking instead of driving that car. What practice for you can you try on as an experiment? I want to end this with a quotation from Howard Thurman, who, though he wasn't actually a Quaker, I think of as very strongly Quaker adjacent. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go do that, because the world needs people who have come alive. So what makes you come alive, friends? What new thing is God inviting you into?